Hey guys, I am excited to be back here on the U Tactical Academy Law Enforcement YouTube channel. And today is awesome. We have an amazing guest. His name is Ben Rugebregt. Did I say that right?
Almost.
Rugebregt?
Almost got it.
What is it?
Rugebregt.
All right, it doesn't matter. He's a very good friend of Courtney, who you guys have seen on here before. He works with her here in Provo. And he goes by Ruger, which is a badass nickname. And we had Ruger come on because he is a detective. He's in investigations here at one of the local departments. And so I know there are a lot of questions. We have done a segment here on what does it take to be a canine officer. This one is, what do you need to know if you want to get into investigations or become a detective? So we just want to welcome Ruger here. So, Ruger, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Ben Rugebregt. I'm with the Provo Police Department. I've been with the department for a little over 4 years. In that time, I've served as a detective, patrolman. I'm on the SWAT team, and I'm also a defensive tactics instructor. For those who don't know what that is, that's your control techniques, hand-to-hand combat type stuff.
So it's interesting, as you're learning about law enforcement, agencies, depending on size, depending on budget, they have dedicated full-time units and then in some cases part-time units. So here in Utah County, there are a couple SWAT teams. And by the way, I have a SWAT background out of Vegas. And I will tell you that the teams that I'm associated with here, the people I know, these teams are highly trained. Even though they're part-time, meaning you've got someone like Ruger who is a detective, that is his primary job. But if there's a SWAT call out, he is a certified, highly trained SWAT officer, and he would respond to that. So anyway, in Vegas, the SWAT team was 100% specialized, dedicated unit, and that's all you did full-time. So out here, Utah's a little more rural. But there is a lot going on here, so you have to have a SWAT team. You have these different, specializations, special units that guys can be a part of, even though, like in this case, Ruger is his primary function is detective. So, that said, let's jump right into that. What is a detective, and what does it take to become a detective? Now, as I ask you that, I've gotten questions in the past where people say, do you have to be a police officer to be on the SWAT team? And for us that have experience, we're like, of course, but not everybody understands that. So have you ever been asked that question? Do you have to be like a police officer before you can be a detective?
Yes, I have been asked that question before, and yes, you do have to be on patrol for usually depending on the agency, they have a certain amount of time before you can go into certain specialties, such as investigations. For Provo, for my agency, you got to have at least 2 years before becoming a detective. Once you really patrol is where you get your foundation of becoming any of the future specialties. Patrol is where you get your investigative skill. You get your interview interrogation technique. All of that is fostered and built on patrol before you even start thinking about becoming a detective.
That's interesting that you say that, because what a lot of people that haven't been a police officer before, what a lot of us don't understand coming into law enforcement, and I'm speaking from my personal experience when I was a rookie, is when you start to investigate something, a lot of times it's he said, she said, and you're trying to find the truth. And when I was a rookie, someone would tell me something, I'd look at my partner and be like, oh my gosh, can you believe that's what happened? And he would just scratch his head and he'd be like, how do you know that's the truth? And I started to realize something as a rookie. People lie. They lie a lot. So talk to us about what a detective does, and specifically, when you're investigating, are people lying to you, and how do you figure that out? What training do you have to go through to be able to get past that and become a good interrogator?
Well, it's true. Some people lie, and some people lie when they don't even realize it. It's a defensive technique. They're being accused of something, or they want to protect themselves or shed themselves in a good light. And whether they realize it or not, they might be omitting information or omitting details about a certain aspect of a case without realizing it. So what we can do is, one, we listen to both sides of a story. The truth is in the middle, right? We also look at circumstantial evidence. So every crime scene, there is an exchange. Something is either taken away or something is left there that wasn't there before. So as a detective, or even on patrol, one of the things you can do to prepare to become a detective is be able to observe and look at the things that maybe weren't there before, things that are different, things that have shifted.
So let me ask a question then, as you talk about like what you can do. So obviously, Ruger's saying you have to be on patrol for a while. That's where you're going to gain a really good foundation before you become a detective. And he's given us some hints about things that you can do on patrol to be better skilled when you go to the testing process. That's what I want to ask about. What is the testing process then from patrol? How did you become a detective? What was the process?
So it's just like any other job that if you've ever applied for a job, it's the same thing. You have an application or some sort of memo that expresses interest into this position. And then you usually have some sort of board or a meeting with captains, sergeants, lieutenants, and they'll ask you all sorts of questions, such as, how have you prepared to become a detective? On patrol, a great way to prepare is, one, write a good report. Be detailed in your reports. Don't just glaze over the incident that happened. Include these fine details that really seal the deal and tighten loose ends on the case. Second is being able to, if you have any trainings or classes while you're on patrol that you go and attend, or even college classes, some college classes that, for those of you that are interested in criminal justice degrees or criminology degrees, those are types of things that that can help outside of the police department for civilian education.
So, you make a really good point. You talk about report writing. If I was, for example, if I was sitting on your oral board and we've got 4 or 5 guys or gals that want to be detectives, and we're trying to pick one, and so would we, those of us that are looking for the next person to come on to our unit, right? We're detectives. What are we looking at when you say reports? Are we pulling like past reports that you've written as a patrol officer and kind of seeing how you write, how articulate you are, or are we asking your sergeant, your commander, how was this guy when it came to writing reports? I mean, how is that process on the side of the people that are trying to figure out which of the candidates will become the new detective?
Exactly. Part of that process, they are going to, after, say, for example, for me, I had to submit a memo of interest. After submitting that memo, they get a list of names of people interested in the position. Then those supervisors, those leadership positions, are going to go back through your cases and say, hey, okay, is he being detailed in these reports? Is he articulating well? Is he, this might sound crazy, but does he have grammatical issues? Like, these are, your report needs to be treated as a document that is going to go through the court system, and you're going to have to testify on behalf of that report, because sometimes you go to court and it's been years and years and years later, and you're not going to remember the fine details, and the fine details are going to be in that report. So if you didn't have a good report, you're going to leave out, you're not going to be able to testify on specific details because you can't remember it.
Wow, that's really important. I myself have testified. I probably can be conservative in my career. Probably testified. Went to court close to 1,000 times. And you're up on the stand testifying, and you've had thousands and thousands of cases, some similar to this, and you are not going to remember. You might even get details from different cases mixed up if you don't have a really good report in front of you. then it's going to be embarrassing up there. So report writing is a big deal. Now, um, Ben, tell us. Okay, so we kind of understand the process. You have to really work hard to be qualified before you start the process to become a detective. But tell us a little bit more about what. Now you're a detective. What does that mean? What do you investigate? Because I know that, and I don't know how this works at your agency, but some detectives have they specialize on property crimes, meaning like a burglary or auto theft or fraud. And then other detectives specialize on homicide and maybe, physical assaults like robbery, the difference between a burglary and a robbery, guys, is this. A burglary is a crime against property, right? You're breaking in to steal, to deprive someone of a piece of property. Where a robbery typically is you're using threat of violence or actual physical violence and assault on someone to take something from them. So that's a crime against a person. Now, these detectives have to investigate all of those. How does it work where you are? What are the assignments? Or do you guys cover all of those?
So I can only speak on my agency. The way we have it kind of divvied out is we've got our crimes against persons, crimes against property. That's our criminal investigations division. We handle your robberies, your burglaries, your white-collar crimes, so your frauds. We also handle your death investigations. Then we have our special victims unit, and they handle your crimes against children or sex crimes. Those are highly sensitive cases that are handled by highly trained individuals that go through specialized training to deal with kids or to deal with sex crimes. And then we have narcotics. Other agencies might be different. They might have detectives in each of those branches, or I spoke with a detective a couple weeks ago from out east, and he and one other guy handle all of those cases. So it really depends on the agency and what you're looking for.
Okay, so that's interesting. You talked about special victims unit, right? Those investigators that are investigating these very sensitive things like, a sexual assault on a child, which I don't even want to think about. It just, I can't understand how, I just couldn't do it. Let me just say that. I just couldn't do it. But there are detectives that they specialize in that. They are so good at communicating. So tell us about this. You have to have special training to do that. Or if you're a homicide investigator, you have to have special training. How often you're already a full-time detective, how often do you train? Are you constantly going to different classes? I mean, how does that work? How do you continue to get better at your craft?
Right. There are different trainings that are offered throughout the state and sometimes the nation. We've had some of our detectives go all the way out to Vegas or California for trainings, and sometimes we have them in-house just at the police department. So it really depends. For our detectives, what our sergeant and our lieutenant like, there's 8, I think it's at 8 right now, 8 basic new detective classes that they would like all of us to go to. I can't name them all, but you've got a new detective class, you've got an interview interrogation class, you've got a homicide investigation class. And another great thing about it is we're constantly revisiting those areas, because sometimes we'll have 3 homicides in a year, and then sometimes we won't have them at all. And then other agencies throughout the nation, they'll have multiple homicides in a week. So it really just depends on the nature. At our department, our CID detectives are supposed to be really well-rounded, and we're constantly revisiting things. The training can be anything from a few days to a week long, or we can even just have an hour-long training along with our morning briefing. So it really all depends.
So when you say CID, is that Criminal Investigations Detectives?
Division.
Oh, division, CID. So you're in the CID as a detective. Okay. One last question here, because again, this is an iceberg, right? We've just asked Ben to give us a little information on what we see above the water as it relates to what is a detective and what is the process to become a detective. There's a ton more information that we need to address in future videos, but one last thing I want to ask. I know in Las Vegas, we had a different unit. So we had detectives, and then you had a unit that specialized in forensic gathering of evidence. What is that? A CSI, right? So, and those people were not necessarily police officers. They were coming to our department with a degree in some crazy stuff. Incredible. They're very scientific. Let me just say that. So they were not certified police officers. They weren't certified to be on the street running patrol or testing from that division of SWAT. They were their own entity that was assigned to the police department. Is it that way here at your agency? Can you just describe a little bit about that type of an investigation?
Right. So if we have to get heavy into forensics, Utah State actually has a lab that will send things off to, pieces of evidence off to gather in-depth fingerprinting or DNA testing. We do, as detectives, get a very surface level training in that, and then we also have evidence technicians for our department. But if there's any really, really high profile cases, we will package the evidence and send it off to the lab. The lab is a very, very valuable tool for us, and it has helped us solve both current cases and past cases. We've had cases recently throughout the state that have been able to be solved because the technology has now developed so much that they can go back to cold cases and start solving these cold cases. These cases are 40 to 60 years old, and then they're able to solve them now because we have the technology that can allow us to do that.
That's awesome. Okay, guys, now I thought of one more question, and maybe you guys are out there going, hey, you got to ask this. So I want to ask you, Ben, on the scene of a homicide, you guys come out as detectives, you secure the scene, you want to keep it, what's the word I'm looking for? Pristine, but that's not the word I'm looking for. You don't want preserve. You want to preserve it. You don't want any contamination. They take photos. They're grabbing, all kinds of evidence. Like I said, in Vegas, the CSI comes out and they'll grab, some of the smaller forensic stuff. But anyway, let's come back to where I'm going. What is a medical examiner as it relates to your crime scene? The guys from the medical examiner's office come out there. Are they part of the investigation? Because I know when you guys have a homicide or any suspicious death, you guys don't move the body. You're waiting for the medical examiner to come there, and then you guys are taking pictures as they move the body. Are they police officers, or what is their role in your investigation?
Here in Utah, we have medical examiners, which is the doctor at the medical examiner's office, and then we have the death investigators. Those are the guys that come out on scene. I believe most of the time they are also a cop, so they have these investigative abilities. But the simplest terms I can put it is, as a detective, I have custody over the scene, while he has custody of the body. So when I go on scene, I'm very careful preserving the scene and leaving it as is. I'm investigating all parts of the scene, very slow, very methodical. As far as the body goes, the body stays there, and the body waits until the medical examiner comes, and then we both kind of investigate that together. It's a really big team exercise.
That's incredible. And then what happens, guys, just real quick as we wrap this up, once they do that together, like they'll roll over a body, for example, and then they might, if it was a gunshot victim, for example, they have an obvious entrance wound that they can see maybe in the shoulder. And then they roll them over and there's an exit wound out of the neck. So it's a weird path that these bullets travel. They're not seeing that till they roll them over. And sometimes that round has come out and is laying literally on the ground or in their clothes. I've had that experience personally. When the medical examiner arrived, we moved a body and the bullet had gone in and out his back, but didn't exit the t-shirt. And when we rolled him over, the bullet fell out of the t-shirt. So anyway, very interesting. This was great information. Again, as you can tell, we're barely scratching the surface. So I want to thank Ben for coming on here and talking to us a little bit. And we want you to tell us in the comments if you have questions about being a detective, or if there's things you would like to know more about, or if there's a video specific to maybe something that you would like to see. Let us know. We'll come back. We'll grab Ben. We'll bring him back in. And then, another thing that he said before we started this was that, he's in a network with so many more detectives that have an incredible mountain of experience. So we'd love to bring them in as well. In conclusion, Ben, is there anything else you'd like to throw out there?
Just one more thing is, if you're really interested in being a detective, get out there and talk to people. Like he was just saying, is networking. My scope going from a patrolman to a detective increased immensely, and it's so much easier to be able to say like, hey, I'm following the leads of a case and it takes me to Salt Lake City. It's much easier for me to just give another detective a phone call and say, hey, here's my case, here's what I got, can you help me out? Rather than you don't know anyone up there and then you almost have to start from scratch. Being a detective is, in my opinion, the business of people, and being able to talk to people, get people to open up. So things you can start right now: get out there, meet people, talk to people, learn to talk to different types of people, people that are really strong type A personalities versus your person that's really shy who might take a little more work to open up to you. Get to learn personality traits like that and be able to talk to people.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ben. We really appreciate it. You guys, we're going to put a link to the Provo Police Department here. I know we have a lot of, right now, currently, a lot of the videos are with local police officers here in the Utah County area, Salt Lake City area. So if you have an interest in any of those agencies, we're going to put some links here so you can reach out to them. And also, in conclusion, if you liked it, please subscribe, share it with your buddies. And don't forget to check out our sponsors here at the end. All right, guys. Thanks again. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. We're out.